my world so often because musicians are lacking in motivation a lot of the time right now, and they're really struggling with focus and mindset and staying positive. So before I dive into the topic, the problem, and offer some solutions for you, if you don't know who I am, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I am the creator of the Art of Freedom method for conscious living and masterful artistry. I'm a coach for musicians of all kinds and also a professional violinist, have been my whole life. Also, before I get into the topic, I want to make sure you know about my free Facebook group where we have tons of discussion about issues confronting modern day performers and educators, mostly for professionals, but also very much for amateurs. So no matter your skill level, you are so invited to my community. It's a very valuable resource with tons of support, advice, tips, all kinds of things to help you enjoy a healthier and happier life as a musician and to improve your skills, your technique, and just enjoy yourself more. And if you're a professional, to really thrive in your career rather than just survive now and try to get through the pandemic. So now you know who I am. Let's go. I want to say hello to anybody coming on. I'm on Facebook and YouTube right now, so I would love to know where you are watching from, which platform are you on, and also where are you from in the world? I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States, which is the Midwest, and it's kind of gloomy and chilly outside right now, but not so bad. And I saw this quote recently, if you can't see the sunshine, be the sunshine. So that's what I'm doing for myself. And hopefully that will transmit over to wherever you are if it's gloomy. But do drop into the comments where you're from and also what your instrument is. I would love to know that, just to kind of have an idea of who the audience is today. And I'd love to have this be interactive. So use the comments and emojis, whatever you got there, so we can have a more interactive discussion today. So the problem, I think, is pretty obvious to musicians these days. It's multifaceted, of course, but the big problem in front of us that nobody can avoid right now, we can't really deny that this is happening. There is very little in-person performing and teaching happening these days. And that can be really kind of hard to stomach if you are a passionate musician, which I'm sure you are, and you thrive on that personal connection with an audience in a concert hall, in your space. I know you pick up on the energy in the room when you start playing. You can sense how people are responding to you much more easily when you're in person than when you're trying to do it on a screen like I am right now. It's a skill to learn how to do this, by the way. I mean, what I mean about how to do this is about how to interact with people you can't see, like right now. It is possible, and it is possible to thoroughly enjoy yourself doing it, but it is a skill, and it does require a shift in mindset, and you got to get motivated to do it. It takes kind of a shift in attitude as well if you're initially resistant to learning how to have a real connection with your audience over the internet like this, when you don't really have a choice, right? Does anybody out there feel frustrated because you feel like you don't have a choice and you just can't do the in-person things anymore and you have to do everything online? Is that frustrating for you at all? Just give me a yes or a no, and I can kind of see where you are right now. How is that difficult for you and frustrating to not have that in-person contact? Yes, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, it's definitely a change. There's no doubt about it. And I also want to include our educators. Is anybody out there an educator? Just tell me if you're an educator or if you're a performer. Most of the people that I work with, my coaching clients and people in my group classes, are both performers and educators. So it's really hard. I'll just be upfront about it. You know it. It's hard as an educator to be forced to be teaching online these days, especially if you're teaching little children. It's hard because usually you're used to using your hands and adjusting the child with their instrument. And there's just so much, personal warmth. And like I said before, there's an energy in the room, in a physical space, that connects you with the person in the space in a way that is not immediately apparent, maybe, when you're doing things online. So how do you feel about all of this, being forced to do this stuff online? You can't be in person. I know from the people that I've talked to, and this is many, many musicians, I know that musicians are feeling anxious also about their careers and the future of music. A lot of performers don't have jobs right now, and gigs are being canceled left and right. If you've had a gig canceled since the pandemic, raise your hand with an emoji or a yes. I want to get how many people have had gigs canceled. I've had a tour canceled. I had a performance in Carnegie Hall canceled this month. I won a competition and we were supposed to have our winners recital this month. Nope, it's canceled. Thankfully, it's postponed until July, but I have a suspicion that it's going to be canceled in July as well, as frustrating as that is. Hello, Adisha. Hey, wonderful to see that you're here. Performer and educator. Yes. Okay. So you're a perfect example. People who come across my world are normally both, right? Performers and educators. And you're finding that frustrating. I think that's what the why for yes is about. So you are not alone. This is extremely common. And there are so many reasons to be feeling anxious, worried, depressed, you name it, all these negative feelings that tend to kind of come through. And another thing that maybe is not talked about as much is a sense of feeling insecure about what our next steps are, because we don't know how long this is going to take. We are not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, really. It's actually worse now in December. We're in December 2020. If you're watching this next year, we're now at the worst time in the entire pandemic since it started in many areas of the world. Like where I live, for instance, it's the worst. It's worse than it ever has been. And so it's hard to see where this is going. Of course, we have a vaccine coming out as well. So we know, God willing, this is not going to last forever, and there is going to be an end to this, but we don't really know when. Is it going to be in the summer next year, or is it going to be in 2 years from now? We don't know. So that could be causing a lot of anxiety and a lot of concern about an indecision about what do I do with my life now as a performer and as an educator if you have a private music studio. Well, as a private music studio owner, it's much more obvious. You've got to teach online. You've probably already been doing it. And if you haven't been and you've just been sort of waiting, hoping this would be over quickly, you're kind of seeing the writing on the wall at this point. This is not going to be over anytime soon. So if you want to keep having an income as a teacher, and a lot of people are okay waiting, but most people are not okay waiting. So they need to do something different to get themselves online with their studios online, teaching online. If you need help with this, as an aside, just so you know, I do have a little mini course that if you're curious about, it's called Teach Online Now, Get Your Studio Onto the Internet Fast. It's a short but very powerful course. If you're one of the people who is hesitant about teaching online, or it scares you, it freaks you out to be in front of video, you need a little help with your mindset and getting motivated to do that, I strongly recommend that you message me, send me an email, ask me in the comments below about how you can find that little mini course, and I will send you information and we can have a little chat about that. But so here's the thing. Here is the meat of what I want to share today. The core, if you're a vegetarian. This is the main part. This is your golden nugget here. Most people think that the problems that we're having that I described, the anxiety, the depression, the insecurity, the fear, most people blame the pandemic. And that seems to be really obvious. In fact, I've just spent 10 minutes doing that, right? It's obviously a factor, but you know what? It's not the essential cause of how you're feeling. What, Jennifer? What are you talking about? There's a pandemic. No, I get it. I get it. I'm affected by it. Everybody's affected by it. However, the cause of how we are feeling is in ourselves, not in our circumstances. Most people in this situation blame the circumstances, and then they either try to figure out what to do to combat the circumstances, or they kind of submit and surrender and say, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to wait it out. That's another option. But the real problem is that we are too easily influenced by external circumstances. And that has become abundantly clear with this global, huge event that has happened to every single person on the planet. And we can all relate to it. And it's so easy to point the finger at the pandemic. And yes, if you're out of work, that's real. And that's the pandemic. But how we respond internally to external circumstances is 100% our responsibility. Now, that may be a little hard to stomach, right? Because it means that we have to get really clear in ourselves about what's actually happening inside of ourselves. Does this make sense? If you're watching, just give me a yes if this makes sense. Now, if this is a kind of a big shift in your thinking, I would love to get your feedback here, or type in, what is hitting you as I'm saying this. And by the way, I want to make this super clear. I am not blaming anybody for feeling bad. I have my moments, plenty of them too, of feeling bad. It is not your fault if you're feeling bad in response to the pandemic. It's natural, it's normal, it's human. And this is not about denying how you feel. If anything, it's about really, really looking really deeply at how you're feeling with brutally clear honesty, right? Get really, really honest with yourself. How are you feeling? And let yourself feel it. Another thing that many people do is they feel bad, but they try to run away from the feeling or hide it or try to fix it, like as if feeling bad, there was something wrong with it. No, it's just part of human nature to have down moments or days or weeks, right? But the thing about being human is that we always have a choice about how we're going to respond in the next moment. So if you're not feeling happy, if you're feeling anxious and worried and scared and depressed, that's okay. It's normal. You acknowledge it. And then you ask yourself, do I like this feeling? Like, no. Does anybody like to feel like that? I don't think so. Does anybody want to keep feeling bad? I don't think so, if you really think about it. So if you don't like how you're feeling, then perhaps you might want to explore different ways of thinking, different ways to approach the situation and respond to it. And what you think is what you get. So examine, how have I been thinking to get the results, the feelings that I'm having right now? What was I thinking this morning? I was feeling great when I woke up. What was I thinking as the morning progressed and my mood started going down? What was I thinking? So you start to become a scientist in the sense that you get really curious about observing yourself and your thoughts and your feelings without judging. Without judging. I'm going to say that again. Without judging. There's nothing wrong with feeling bad. It's just not life enhancing, right? If you feel bad, your body goes down, gets tight, compresses, and everything starts to shut down, including your internal organs. So if you feel bad and depressed and constricted most of your life, you're going to die sooner, most likely, and you're not going to have a happy life. So that's your choice, but most people don't want that. So If you don't want that, then it makes sense to pause and get curious about a different way of thinking. How could we shift our mindset? Here's one more thing I wanted to say. Whenever I kind of feel out, by the way, I don't think I mentioned, but I'm the host of a Facebook group, and I'm about to talk about that. So just so you know, it's called The Musician's Advantage. It's a free public Facebook group. You are so welcome to join. There's a ton of value that I put in there. So please come join if you're not a member yet. It's a great group, and we have a lot of wonderful discussion in there. So what I have noticed in my group members and other musicians and people that I'm working with is that there is a tendency, there's like a default in musicians. When they're not doing as well as a musician, it's almost like the default solution is to practice more, right? So if you're feeling bad about your playing, practice more. If you're worried about your career, practice more. If your technique is suffering, practice more. There's a lot of truth in that. However, practicing more is not the solution to the mindset issues. It's a cover-up, because you're still going to have the deeper core issue that I mentioned before, which is we are too easily influenced by external circumstances. We don't know how to be ourselves in a centered way that's authentic and free to shine out with full self-expression through our music, in our everyday activities, in our voice, in our speaking. We don't know how to let things flow with ease. We don't know how to go with the flow. Things happen. Things are always happening. And this is a huge thing that's happened, the pandemic. Excuse me. Sorry. But we are now called to go with the flow at a much higher level. And what's hard also is to maintain the ability and the intention to go with the flow. Now, this is what I teach very specifically to my private clients, my coaching clients, who are mostly professional musicians. And I also teach this in my Alexander Musicians group classes, which is musicians of all skill levels, and professionals and amateurs. We explore the 5 pillars of my Art of Freedom method for conscious living and masterful artistry. And much of my approach is based on the Alexander technique. I'm a certified teacher of that. My work it's much more comprehensive, but it's encapsulated in 5 pillars. These pillars are purpose, mind, body, spirit, and artistry. And it's about how to integrate every aspect of who you are and then direct it through your music making with ease. So mental, emotional ease, calm, peacefulness, freedom of expression, so that you can also express powerfully strong and even negative emotions in a composer's music. You don't have to take those on. You can become the channel for that expression and remain unaffected. In a sense, you're affected, but you don't hold on to it, or you don't fight it. You don't get hooked into the drama. You are a clear conduit for that inspiration. Ideally, we can do that in our everyday lives. You want to be a conduit for inspiration when you're talking with your friends or your music students. Don't you want that if you're an educator? Don't you want to have wonderful ideas, musical ideas just coming to you, and then you get to transmit them to make a real difference in your students' lives? It's the same that we do on stage. You get a creative idea on the spot, or you're playing with other people and they do something unexpected and you respond instantly. That is the creative process. But it gets blocked if your mindset is off. So how do you get motivated? This video is about mindset and motivation. How do you get motivated if You're just flat on your back, not knowing what to do during the pandemic, and everything seems to be hard. It's hard to get motivated, right? I think another part of the real problem is that we're not clear on what our intentions are. We're not clear on what we really want. That's the first pillar of the Art of Freedom method, purpose. So the first key to getting motivated, we can get motivated, I could just give you a list of 25 ways to get motivated, like dance your music or sing your music or go outside in nature. I could just give you a big list and rattle that off, and that would be easy. But I think I'm more interested in the underlying core, because you can go out and have a lovely walk in nature, and you can listen to great music and get inspired. But after a few hours, you might feel down again. So I'd rather go to the root cause of what's going on. And for most people, I don't think that they are sufficiently connected to their deep core purpose, their heart purpose, their life purpose. In my coaching programs, this is the first thing that we do in our initial strategy session. It's like a VIP session where we sit down together and look at your whole, all the different areas of your life, and we distill things into a life purpose, something that many people have not really thought carefully about. So that's the place where we really start to hone in on the essential driving force in your life. And it's different for everybody, but not so different, right? So once you are very, very, very clear about your purpose, you have an anchor that you can always come back to. But it's hard to get at that, and most people need help because they haven't really thought about this. And so getting help from somebody who has kind of been there, done that, gone through it, and I'm just saying, I'm a coach, and so this is something that I feel very passionately and strongly about and love to help my clients with, to get in touch with their purpose. And then having very, very clear, specific, practical tools for getting your thinking back on track. It's so easy to have a scattered mind. I think that's the real, okay, I'm going to make a big statement here. The real pandemic isn't a virus. The real pandemic is a lack of connection with our true selves. It's a lack of focus on the essential. If this pandemic could, destroy everything, or it could make us really, really, really clear about what's essential. And it could, if you know how to channel this time and energy for yourself, it could potentially be one of the best times of your life. I know that's kind of an outrageous statement, but to be perfectly transparent and honest, in a very strange sense, this last year for me personally has been the strangest year of my life, and in many, many ways, by far the best and the most loving of my life, because of my background as a spiritual person interested in meditation for my whole life, and as an artist exploring my own creative spirit, and having the Alexander technique, which is a very, very powerful mind-body discipline that I practice for myself and teach to my students. And then these 5 pillars, having all of those in place for me, and having been practicing them for many years, when the pandemic hit, it just made everything so much clearer for me about how important, how essentially important it is to take the actions required to get in touch with that inner truth, the inner truth of who we are, and to learn how to get everything else out of the way as much as possible. Everything else is a distraction, and it's not going to help you get what you really want. So I'm just going to check in and, oh, hello, Bethany is here, and Anita, I just saw that you're here. And welcome to everybody on YouTube as well as on Facebook. I really hope that this broadcast is actually working on all these platforms, on both of these platforms. I'm still very new to this simulcasting. Hopefully, if you're on YouTube, I would love to see a comment here. I don't know if that's possible for me to see, but anyway, maybe later I'll see it when I get off. But I hope this context, this kind of a totally different way of looking at things, maybe than the way most people do look at this pandemic issue. I hope this has been useful for you and it gives you some food for thought. And if Bethany says it's working perfectly, oh, Bethany's on YouTube. Excellent. Thank you, Bethany, for letting me know. And I'm so happy I can actually see the names of people, which I wasn't able to last time. Great. Thanks, Bethany. That's very helpful. Okay, so are there any quick questions right now? I'm happy to stay on for a couple more minutes. And if there are any questions or comments that may be arising for anybody here. As I'm waiting for any comments, I just want to put out there that it is nearing the end of December. Actually, it's not. I keep thinking we're almost at the end of December, but we're only about halfway through. Not even quite halfway through. There's something in me that keeps thinking that we're farther along. Anyway, I still have a couple openings left for the Musicians Advantage private coaching program. This is something that I run all the time, but at this point right now, I'm taking 2 more private coaching clients into my studio. So if what I've been talking about is interesting to you, then please just reach out, put a comment down here, or you can send me a private message. You can check out my website if you want more information about me and my program. Actually, I don't really talk that much about my programs. That's more one-on-one. So just email me or contact me through my website. It's www.artoffreedom.me. And make sure you join my Facebook group. It's called the Musicians Advantage. And I would love to continue the conversation either in an email, private conversation. You can also private message me through Messenger on Facebook, or in my Facebook group. We can talk more about private coaching, or if you're an amateur, about my group program. That would be something that could be perfect for you if you want to learn more about mindset and motivation and going with the flow, thriving during the pandemic, not just surviving. Okay, so I'm seeing some comments coming in from Bethany. She says, my sister is stuck on a plateau in her violin, and I sent the cycle to her. Absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad you sent her the cycle. For my viewers who don't know what the cycle is, it is the very first thing. It's the first practical awareness etude. I do these practical things called awareness etudes with my students every day. The cycle, you can find it and learn it for yourself. There is a video on YouTube. Just search my name and the cycle. It should pop up. The video, I think, is called Relax Everything in Less Than 3 Minutes, something like that. Start there if you want a little taste of the practical work that I do for mind, body, ease. It's there. So Bethany, first of all, yes, thank you so much for sending your sister the cycle. She's stuck on a plateau. So I would want to know I would want her to maybe start journaling if she's not already doing that, and to ask herself one question in particular. In fact, everybody who's watching, you can do that for yourself right now. Ask yourself this one question. Pause for yourself. Just take a moment. Do a little body scan and ask yourself, what am I noticing about myself right now? What am I noticing about myself, my body, my mind, my thoughts, emotions? Basically, what's happening to me, in me, right now? And because this is your sister and I don't know her, I know nothing about her, so this is kind of a generic advice. But for somebody with no support, if she's a violinist, you can bring her to my group. That would be the best thing to do. But if she's just on her own, journaling is very, very, very important because it slows down your thoughts enough and it helps you to externalize your thoughts and your experience a little bit. So it helps you put things more into perspective, and it starts the process of witnessing yourself to journal. And very, very important to not judge the experience. So if you notice pain or tension coming up in your body, it's just a fact. You just jot it down. You're a scientist, you're a detective, you're just gathering information. So that's where to start. That's even before the cycle. So asking yourself, it's actually a practice called EMA. So as I mentioned before, I teach the Alexander technique, but I teach I have an additional almost 5 years of training now, in addition to my traditional hands-on training, which is in Primal Alexander, which is a hands-free method of teaching the Alexander technique so that I could teach without touch. It's wonderful. It's a really, 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 really great way to get back to the core foundations of the Alexander technique. It's the real thing, but it doesn't have the hands-on component, so that the student is much more empowered to take responsibility for their own learning and their own improvement. And so I've been teaching this exclusively online for the last 2 years, almost 3 now. So we start with Primal Alexander, which is that hands-free Alexander technique method created by Mio Morales. We start with something called ima, which means now in Japanese, and it's simply what I just suggested. Pausing and getting in touch with ourselves by asking, what do I notice about myself right now? That's the first thing, to start to be really in touch with what's actually happening, free of judgment. So hopefully that helps. Bethany says, love that idea. Good. She has a teacher, but she also has a lot of life stress, diabetic husband, your cancer, a job she hates. I need to help her decompress. Journaling is a great idea. Yes, yes. You can help her so much. Yes, you have a lot of knowledge, Bethany. I know you, and you're also in my Alexander Musicians group right now. So there are a lot of things that you can share with her and help her. As a violinist, she is very, very welcome to take my Jumpstart program. This is the first step to join my group program, if anybody here is interested. It's especially for amateurs, but not just for amateurs at all. I shouldn't even say that because there are so many professionals that take my Jumpstart program. It's a 30-day program where you kind of sample my work. You get a private coaching, one session with me where we go in depth into your unique situation. There's a self-study course that teaches the foundations of the Alexander technique, Primal Alexander, the Art of Freedom method. And then there are live group classes involved. So it's a really comprehensive, value-packed 30-day program that I would strongly recommend for every single person watching if you're a musician. So you're very welcome, Bethany. Thank you so much for asking. I think I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Please send me your feedback in the comments below, whether you're watching the replay later. I love to get your comments, and I respond to every single person who shows up. I really do want to know where everybody's from. So just type into the comments where you're from, what your instrument is. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And if you're struggling, please don't hesitate to contact me. As I said, I still have 2 openings left for people. These are for professional musicians who want to really, really thrive during the pandemic, who want to enjoy a healthier, happier, balanced life, and also an abundantly successful career, regardless of the circumstances. If you want that, please reach out to me. Claim one of those 2 spots that I have left. I'll send you a questionnaire. It's by application only, and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. And then we'll have a little chat and we'll go from there. And I would love for you to be one of my next coaching clients in the Musician's Advantage private coaching program. If you're watching this later, it's not December anymore. contact me anyway, because I'm always having new openings come up. Not always, but you could get on a waiting list if I don't have any openings left. But please don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's very likely that we can start the ball rolling and have a connection that will help you. And if I don't have any openings at that time, I can let you know when I have openings, but the Jumpstart program could be perfect for you. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and come on over to my Facebook group so we can continue the conversation over there. I hope this helps you with your mindset. I hope you're feeling a little more motivated now, and please share this video with anybody, any musician that you think could benefit. All right, lots of love to you. Be well and take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.